So just a few days ago, Kevin Porter Jr. scored 15 points and 11 assists, which was a very out of the blue game, since everyone knew Porter was good and that he was doing fine on the Rockets and that he had a lot of potential, but no one could have expected him to score 50 points against the Milwaukee Bucks, one of the best defenses in the league. And from what I've seen in that game, I honestly believe Kevin Porter is a future NBA All-Star. So in today's video, I'll be giving some reasons to why I think Kevin Porter Jr. is a future NBA All-Star. But before we get into the video, I ask you to drop a like on this video as it does help my channel grow. Subscribe to my channel if you want weekly NBA content and to reach my goal of 1,000 subscribers. And comment on this video, start a conversation with me as I do respond to all of my comments, and play that intro. The first reason I believe Kevin Porter Jr. will be an NBA All-Star is the fact that Porter Jr. in only a limited amount of time has shown a tremendous amount of skill. He's already an above average NBA player, but he's not necessarily doing it with just being good at one thing like defense or shooting. He's good at multiple things. He's a great slasher to the rim, as I see him do many moves that literally no big man can stay in front of, and most defenders in general can't stay in front of him. He has assortment of moves going to the basket, and overall it just seems like he'll be really good at finishing. Also, Porter has a very good handle. It's very loose, but it's not too loose to where he'll get stripped or anything like that. His handle makes me believe that he can be a legitimate point guard in this league. Although in his time with the Rockets, Kevin hasn't been an amazing shooter from the three-point line. He's only shooting 31% from three, but when you watch him play, you could just see the confidence he has when he's shooting the three ball. He definitely has confidence in his shooting ability, and when it comes to shooting, confidence is a big part of it. And I think as years go by, he will turn into, at worst, an above average shooter. And I honestly think that he can be a good one simply because of his confidence and his ability to make them off the dribble. Kevin also has a good mid-range shot, and he's good at creating it, especially in the pick and roll. I don't know if he's good enough shooter to be shooting it a bunch of times a game, but it is something that he can go to in his game. Kevin also is a player with a deep bag. Yes, so much moves that he can go to, crossover, spins, literally anything. He might even have a bigger bag than a lot of NBA All-Stars. And let me not forget to mention Porter's passing ability. In his rookie season, he wasn't much of a playmaker since he played alongside Collin Sexton, Darius Garland, who are two ball-dominant point guards, but on the Rockets, he has looked like a good passer. He's not Chris Paul or anything like that, but he's an above-average passer for a point guard. Kevin's skill has led him to average 16 points and 6 assists, shooting 41% from the field and 31% from three since joining the Rockets. Although the Rockets suck, that's still some pretty impressive numbers for a 20-year-old playing in his second season in the NBA. The only problem I have with him is the fact that he's inefficient, and I don't think he can be a star if he's that inefficient, but I think he will fix that by being less trigger happy, because often he takes difficult shots that he simply isn't good enough at this moment to make and take. But when he fixes that up, I think his career will continue to rise. When you have a player of that skill level, you cannot at least consider them to be a superstar in the future. The second reason I believe Kevin Porter Jr. can be an NBA All-Star is the fact that often when we see players not reach their full potential, a lot of the time it's their situation. Because a lot of times certain teams are terrible at developing young talent, so it can ruin some players' careers or stop them from being as good as they actually could and should be. And I think if Kevin Porter Jr. was still at the Cavs, a pretty dysfunctional franchise, also a franchise that already has a solid amount of young talent and specifically guards that can handle the balls, and guys like Darius Garland and Collin Sexton, I would be a bit more skeptical on whether or not I think he could be an All-Star. But on the Rockets, I think he can really become one. And this is because in the Rockets, the last few seasons, not including the James Harden trade, have been a pretty well-run organization, and I think they could do a good job at developing his talent, since they did turn, or they were a big part of the process that turned James Harden from a Sixth Man of the Year to an MVP and a top 5 player. Now, I don't want to say Kevin Porter Jr. is the next James Harden, but the similarities are very much similar, since they both have a deep bag with their step backs, crossovers, and all that. Also, both of them are left-handed, so it's not crazy to think that Houston could develop him to be the next Harden, and they would just have as good of a chance as any other team in the league, since they did have Harden for the last 8 seasons. But let me not get too ahead of myself. Kevin Porter Jr. might not ever be James Harden, and that's perfectly fine. If he's just an all-star, he would have already surpassed his expectations. I think the Rockets can be a huge part of his development into an all-star. The third reason I believe Kevin Porter Jr. can be an NBA All-Star is the fact that what I see often with many young players is that they lack confidence or they lack the it factor. And a prime example of that is Andrew Wiggins and Lonzo Ball. In Andrew Wiggins' case, he lacks the X factor, which is the factor that just makes him a great player and just someone who can continue to get better and someone who just wants it. And in Lonzo Ball's case, he lacks both. He lacks confidence, and although he's having a great season this season, if he was a bit more confident, like consistently, he could very well be an all-star type player, but he simply isn't. But Kevin Porter Jr. on the other end looks like a player who has both of those things, as it's pretty clear looking at him that he has tremendous amount of confidence, because any decent shot he sees, he will take and he'll believe that he can make it, because he just has that much confidence in himself. No matter how hard the shot is, he still believes it's going to go in, and no matter how bad he shoot it, he believes he'll hit the next one, which can be a good and bad thing. And if he becomes as good as I think he will be, that will turn into a good thing. Porter Jr. is also a guy who has an it factor, meaning he just has the swagger to be a star, and also is a player who can continue to improve and work harder to improve. In that game versus the Bucks, Porter looked like an absolute NBA star, and he showed how much confidence he has, because he was taking big shots and hitting big shots against one of the best teams in the league when the game was very, very close. And he was being defended by arguably the best perimeter defender in the league in Jrue Holiday. And he was constantly giving them buckets. That just shows how much confidence this Rockets team, the coach, as well as his teammates have in him, since they were allowing him to take a lot of the big shots. And that is just star qualities. Anyways, guys, that's it for the video. Let me know if you agree or disagree with what I said in this video. Drop a like on this video to help my channel grow. Subscribe to my channel if you want weekly NBA content and to reach my goal of 1,000 subscribers. And comment on this video to start a conversation, as I do respond to all comments. And I'm out.